All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Crew Show with a little instant reaction to the 49ers loss on Monday Night Football. Of course, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in both spots. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Get the brisket chili. Say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them the Krug sent you. All right, 49ers lose and fall to 5-2. 22-17 was the final. It really was just not the night for the Niner defense or for Brock Purdy. Purdy looked great through the first three quarters, but two picks in the final two drives to end the game. Purdy finished 21 of 30 for 272 yards, had the one touchdown, the two interceptions. He was only sacked the one time. 49ers, once again, second week in a row, they didn't run it well enough. They didn't stop the run well enough. The Niners ran 22 times for 65 yards. 3 yards a carry against Minnesota is not good enough. Minnesota couldn't run it last week against the Bears. For some reason, they could run it today. 3.5 yards a carry is not great, but 4.9 per carry for Alexander Mattison. And then, the 49ers missing Debo. George Kittle had 5 catches, 78 yards. Ayuk had 5 catches for 57 yards. Jennings had 5 catches, 54 yards. I mean, they had some guys. Ray stepped up with a couple catches. But the real story in this one, to me, was the Niner defense. And they just could not stop Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins dropped back to pass 45 times, and they didn't sack him one time. He was 35 of 45 for 378. Every time he looked up, he had somebody open. Jordan Addison absolutely toasted the Niners. 7 catches for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns. TJ Hawkinson caught 11 balls. Some guy named Brandon Powell caught 4 balls for 64 yards. KJ Osborne. I mean, every time Kirk Cousins dropped back to pass, he found somebody. And the Niners Lenore, Ward, Oliver, the Niner 3 corners all got roasted. Niners defense needs to take a deep look in the mirror and see what's going on. 452 total yards given up by the 49er defense. There was just no resistance at all. I mean, at all. The 49ers are going to have to, they were -2 on the turnover margin. Minnesota held the ball for 35 minutes compared to 25 for the 49ers. But really, that was it. It was the ball game right there. And, Kirk Cousins, you can tip your cap to Cousins, and he was very, very good in this game. You can't fool Kirk Cousins. You just can't. So if you're going to rely on trying to fool people, good luck with that. And, the game started all right for the Niners. They got an interception by Mooney Ward on Minnesota's first possession. And then things look good for the Niners. They're moving the ball down the field. They're inside the red zone. And then CMC runs and fumbles. Cam Bynum forced the fumble. Cam Bynum had a huge night tonight for the Vikings, and the Vikings recovered the ball. So you had a 0-0 ball game, and then Minnesota kicked in on that second drive, and the Niners could not defend the tight end. Hawkinson made a number of catches, and they couldn't defend the run. And then Cousins would find Jordan Addison on a touchdown pass to cap the 10-play, 84-yard drive. And it was just a consistent, not enough from the Niner defense right there. Then the 49ers on their second possession would get it on their own 29. But a false start by Kittle hurt them on the drive. And then ultimately they had to settle for a Jake Moody 40-yard field goal, and he missed it. And he was slipping in the pregame on the surface. That's what they were saying. But he missed a 40-yard field goal. So right there, you're like, oh, my goodness, they missed a 40-yard field goal. Minnesota gets it back on their second drive, their third possession, and they moved it all the way down the field, a 13-play, 67-yard drive, and only Kevin Givens and Fred Warner's excellent play on the goal line prevented a touchdown. So then they had to settle for the Greg Joseph field goal, and that gave Minnesota the early, 10-0 lead at that point. And then the Niners would get their touchdown on their third possession. Purdy found Ayuk, Purdy with a slant to Ayuk, Purdy with a beautiful pass to Juwan Jennings. And ultimately, CMC would run in from 3 yards out, 16th straight game with a touchdown for McCaffrey, and it was 10-7, 12-play, 75-yard drive right before halftime. But this is where the game was lost, in my opinion. Fourth drive for Minnesota. They get the ball back. It's a minute left or so, and suddenly Steve Wilks gets super aggressive. On 3rd and 6, he brought a 6-man, which almost looked like a 7-man pressure. There were 7 49ers in the backfield, and Cousins found Addison. Mooney Ward went for the pick, and he looked like he had the ball in his hands, and then he had it ripped out by Addison, who then rumbled into the end zone for a touchdown. So instead of it being 10-7 at halftime, it's 16-7. The PAT was missed, but still it's 16-7 at halftime. And if you looked at it at half, Minnesota was averaging 5.8 yards per carry. Cousins was 15 of 20. Purdy completed 85% in the first half. He was 11 of 13 for 122, but it was 16-7 Minnesota. And that touchdown absolutely was a crusher. Now, the Niners could not score on their first possession of the third quarter. They were forced to punt. The Vikings then, on their first possession of the second half, got a penalty against Mooney Ward for illegal contact that kept the drive alive, and then a PI on Lenore against Addison that kept the drive alive. And ultimately, the Niners forced him to go for a Greg Joseph field goal, and he made it from 20 yards out to make it 19-7. So they're down 19-7 at that point, and you're thinking, okay, this is probably just not the Niners' night. But then they score on a 3-play drive. Purdy found CMC for 35 yards out against a 0 blitz from Minnesota. And at that point, it was 19-14 in anybody's ball game. But the Niners could never stop Kirk Cousins, and he kept making plays. 3rd and 5 on the next drive, he found Powell. Then he found Hawkinson. And eventually, Greg Joseph would kick a 54-yard field goal to make it 22-14. But Addison was knocked out of the game, and you're thinking, okay, Hawkinson's dinged up. Addison's knocked out. The Niners are probably going to be able to come from behind. Niners on their 6th possession got a nice kickoff return from Ray McLeod to set things up. Purdy found Kittle for 18 yards, and then the drive stalled when Purdy rolled to his left, threw short to Ayuk. He tried to scoop it off the carpet, but it was ruled incomplete. So Shanahan sends Moody out there for a 55-yard field goal, and he made it to make it 22-17. 6-play drive, and Purdy through 3 quarters was 16 of 19 for a touchdown, completing 84% of his passes. Niners defense started to hold in the 4th quarter, and they did. They forced a punt. Believe it or not, the Niners got an interception on that first drive. Then the Vikings went touchdown, field goal, touchdown, field goal, field goal. And it wasn't until their 7th possession that they forced their first punt. So then the Niners get it back, and it's their 7th possession. It's the 4th quarter, and Purdy on a 1st and 10 play gets picked off by Can Bynum on a ball to Jennings. And so the Vikings get it back. But instead of making a field goal to make it an 8-point game at the end, they drive all the way down the field, and Greg Joseph misses a 50-yard field goal. So the Niners, with no timeouts and a minute and 11 left in the game, get the ball back, and they're moving the ball down the field. It's 1st and 10 from the 40 with 34 seconds left, and Purdy rolling to his right, throwing across his body, threw a pass. Cam Bynum made a nice play on the ball, interception. 3rd takeaway for Minnesota, ball game, 22-17, and the Vikings get it done. So Purdy, 2 crushing turnovers on the last 2 drives. That obviously hurt the 49ers a lot. The -2 in turnovers on the road never is a good situation. Vikings dominated the time of possession by 10 minutes. But if there was one absolute in this game, it was that Kirk Cousins roasted Steve Wilks' defense all night long. Cousins, 378 yards. Never once was he sacked. He played incredible football. Wilks did not call a great game, and the Niners lose to the Vikings 22-17. And I really believe that touchdown right before the end of the first half was a crusher in this game. But then Purdy's interceptions, of course, are going to be the headline tomorrow. All right, join us on the Krug Show. We're going to go live stream right now and take your video calls and your chats and talk it up with myself and Kev and JD. Baller won't be here tonight, but maybe Danny and Rye will join us. Niners lose 22-17. They get a short week, quick turnaround. Bengals off the bye week will be at Levi's Sunday, fully rested. And the 49ers in a absolute must-win situation if they want any chance of hosting the playoffs at home this year. All right, that does it. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being a sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to all you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.